Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the John Mayer Gear Lounge show. I'm Justin, here today with Tommy, Chandler, and Alejandro. And today we are going to be discussing this incredible guitar, the Fender John Mayer Signature Artist Series Stratocaster. We're going to talk about everything from the birth and production of this guitar, all the limited editions, some things that a lot of people don't even know, including a big reveal for myself that Tommy has in store, and it's going to be a great one. So without further ado, let's get right into it. You guys, thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come on and film this awesome episode. Everyone really appreciates that, including myself. So Tommy, let's roll right into the presentation.
This is super exciting for a lot of reasons. I think there's some, when you go down a research rabbit hole of a piece of gear, you discover things that you didn't even know, and like super fans don't even know. And I'm excited to kind of show some of that stuff to you. But I do want to point out before I think we get into it that we all have a Mayer Sig right now in front of us, which is pretty cool. I have the CFM one here, and then we got a Sunburst and two Olympic whites, even though the one Alejandro is holding has been tanned by the Colombian sun.
It's crazy.
Pretty crazy, that change in color. All right. Are we ready to dive in? Anything we want to discuss before we jump in?
No, I think
we're ready.
All right, let's do it. All right. So today, my friends, we are going to be discussing the John Mayer Signature Stratocaster. As Justin said, we'll kind of cover the basics, specs, timelines, some of the birth of the guitar, and then kind of follow a little bit of another timeline that's about John getting his own signature guitar, starting to concept it, some of the early versions, early models, prototypes, all the way through to all of the different versions that were released over the years. So starting pretty basic, first thing we can see here is colors. So these were the colors that were officially released of the Mayer Sig Strat. We have the Sunburst model with the tortoiseshell pickguard, Charcoal Frost Metallic with the Inca Silver racing stripes, Shoreline Gold with the red racing stripes, Olympic White, Cypress Mica, and the NOS Black one was the last John Mayer Sig to come out. Pretty cool color lineup, no?
Absolutely. It's crazy.
Something for everyone.
Yeah, it feels like forever ago, like that. I can't believe it's been that long, like since like the signature Strat's been discontinued, and like the black one was what 2010, I think. Like
2010.
Yeah, that was the last like special release. It feels weird, talking about it like that.
Yeah, over 15 years ago since they came out.
Curious to know maple necks or maple boards ever got released.
I think that's because even to this day, John's a rosewood neck player, as we all know. He'll play maple neck occasionally. He had a few guitars with maple necks, and also the Silver Sky that he's now playing in maple for New Light, and also the new Lunar Ice Silver Sky that was just announced. But yeah, all rosewood.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I wanted to touch on an interesting one. There's also another color in consideration, which was a prototype. I think a lot of people know about this one, mainly because, as you can see from the image, John posted about it on his Instagram. He was in his guitar vault, which I know we all would love to just go spend 5 minutes in and just explore. But he pulled out this blue one where he says, what could have been my signature Strat painted in Arliss blue, a vintage Land Rover color, one-off prototype that never went into production, something from the vault. And I actually pulled this picture from just this year when Land Rover redid the Defender launch. And I think that's actually John's vintage Defender. And that was actually the inspiration for this color version of the Mayer Sig, which you even see has a black input jack. I think it actually had the Land Rover logo on the input jack, and they used that Arliss blue color. I mean, it kind of fits with the idea of car colors turning into Strat colors, but I thought that was a cool one to point out.
I would have bought that one in a heartbeat if it came out. It's so nice.
Pretty cool color.
It's quite interesting to think that maybe he was trying to go into that direction with Fender. Like, let's draw inspiration from things that are in the rest of the world, like cars. And maybe they didn't were all into that somehow. But now with PRS, it's obviously that they went full with the Tesla color.
Tesla colors,
so,
yeah.
Maybe it's, you never know, speculation. It could be one of those things where John really wanted to do it and Fender was kind of like, I don't know if we're into doing a production guitar like that, if it really is in line with our brand. And you never know, it might be one of those little things that John mentioned that led up to him actually wanting to leave. But
yeah, I mean, it could have been like a limited run. Interesting that they put the logo, the Land Rover logo, because then it would have to be like a co-branded thing.
It would have to be like a licensing thing, yeah.
Licensing, co-branded, but kind of a cool thing that a good number of people know because it was on his Instagram, but still kind of an interesting prototype version of that guitar.
In fact, I remember, I'm not entirely sure, but on the Search for Everything tour, it seems that the guitar was on the rack. I can't be sure because it's just a frame. I posted that on the John Mayer. I posted the rack, and a lot of people went like, "That's the Land Rover. That's the Land Rover." I can't be sure, but it kind of looks like that blue.
Interesting.
It does. Yeah.
Like you say, even the black input jack matches, the wheel arches.
Yeah, exactly.
Just little things.
Version. The next guitar we're going to talk about here has some Mayer Sig flavor to it, though I'm guessing wasn't really a Mayer Sig. So if you look at the picture on the left, this was one of the Crashocasters that John had, and in the middle is graffiti artist John Crash Matos, who John has partnered with, has been a fan of, and they've done shirts together and obviously guitars. He's also painted a bunch of bodies for Clapton. And I think the most famous John's Crashocasters is the one that Crash painted for him on the right side of the screen there.
The 83. Yeah.
The 83 Crashocaster with the maple neck. Which I think he got around like right before the Continuum tour era. You see the date here is August 2006 is the picture on the left. But he also had him paint this white and black one, which you see him playing on stage during the Continuum tour. The reason I brought it in is if you look at the neck, it's actually a Mayer Sig neck. It's got the higher up string tree and dare I say, not the nicest looking rosewood on that neck, which makes me think it was just a production line Mayer Sig that they slapped that neck on. Who knows what the rest of the guitar is. I think one of the things I saw, we'll talk about specs in a bit, is the pickguard is not the 62 style. So you see the screw is closer to the middle pickup there. So it might have some custom pickups in it. It might be a different white body that Crash painted. It might have been an Olympic white.
I can't remember. Did this one also have a 2-point on it? I believe. I've seen a couple different pictures. It didn't look like, in certain pictures, it almost didn't look like it was a normal bridge to me.
Maybe I'll see if I can find another. We'll throw another picture up.
Yeah, it's hard to. There's so many pictures. There's only so many pictures, and usually his hand's there.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of a cool. It kind of made a run during the Continuum tour in 2006, and I don't think he's played it much since.
It could be one of those. It's probably the closest thing we ever got to a maple board. JM Sig.
The 83.
Oh yeah, the 83 Crashocaster. Although I'm guessing that might have been more like a Clapton spec.
We were talking about that actually, because he played it at Webster Hall for "I Don't Trust Myself."
Yeah.
And I think it was the first argument you and I have ever had, where I thought it was like full Clapton spec. But it's a 21 fret maple neck, without the head adjust. Yeah. And those are normal pickups. Like, it's interesting. It's definitely kind of in that kind of style, but kind of maybe tweaked kind of his specifications.
Tweaked for him.
Yeah.
Cool guitars though.
Oh yeah.
I also love Crash's art. It's pretty awesome.
Chandler's totally right. That's a 2-point.
Oh, it is?
It is.
My man.
That's cool.
I wonder if that was based on whatever body they picked for him to paint. It's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Considering most of his
That's
other
weird.
guitars.
I think it's the only time I've seen him playing a 2-point. I could be
The
wrong. I
Jetpack.
don't remember. Oh, the
Talk
Jetpack
Graphs.
Strats.
Yep.
That's right.
That's
Just
the only other one I know.
Just for the viewers who maybe don't quite know what a 2-point is, does someone want to explain? Maybe Chandler, do you want to take that?
If you'd like. I actually have a 2-point here. So basically a 2-point tremolo. Let me slide back to my camera so I can actually see. With a 2-point tremolo, you're actually only using 2 pivot points, whereas on like a traditional Stratocaster, you have 6 screws right here, and that's the fulcrum that the tremolo rocks against. Whereas a 2-point, this is a Floyd Rose, but it's the same type of system. You see here,
Alejandro has one.
Yep, yeah. Alejandro has the actual bridge on what appears to be John.
From my American Strat that it's currently under a bit of makeover.
Yeah, and it's gonna be so cool when you're done with it.
Yes,
man. I'm so excited for that one.
So this is a 2-point, and it's quite an interesting system for tremolos.
Yeah, it gives a smoother feel, and in theory should allow the tremolo to return to tune easier. But obviously you have to make sure you're actually setting it up properly. Doing all the correct steps you need to do. Lube the nut, all that stuff to actually allow it to come back. But it is a smoother feel. It definitely is a little different. It's fun like going between like a normal vintage style trem on some of my like main stage guitars, and then going to like my Charvel or my red Strat with the Floyd, and it's like, whoa, I don't have to push so hard.
Nice. And the JM Sig, I guess the difference between that and the production JM Sig, the JM Sig's a vintage style.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Correct.
Yep.
Exactly. 6 screw.
Cool. Now a fun topic. What cases did the JM Sigs come with? You can see a couple behind me, one behind Justin.
You see the one behind Tommy.
The green one that John likes the most. So these were the 4 cases that the guitars came with. The first launch edition was another partnership. I think John kind of curates the brands that he likes to use himself, and then because he's John Mayer, he finds ways to partner with them and come up with cool signature gear, which we've seen a lot over the last 20 years. But the first Mayer Sigs came out with this Incase co-branded Fender Incase John Mayer signature gig bag, which my CFM came with, and the Sunburst Chandler has, although Chandler has a special type of Incase one as well. We'll talk about it. And then the one behind Justin. You have a similar one too, right?
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. This is actually an Incase branded bag. They were actually designing these around the same time that the Mayer partnership happened. And you can find these every now and then. They're kind of a rarity these days. They also made them in a double bag, which I'm currently trying to track down. If any of you have a double Incase bag for 2 guitars, let me know, because I'm hunting for one. So these are really cool. And they just have a normal Incase branding. If you compare that to like to Justin or Tommy's there in the background, where it's normally the Fender branded one has the F. These still have the front pocket with the laptop storage and all the internal stuff inside here for your storage and everything.
Nice.
Tommy, it's interesting. You mentioned something where the kind of original run Mayer Sigs came with these. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about just like the standard Sunburst and Olympic White, or like earlier on in production?
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 that came out, the next slide I'll show is a timeline of the different release dates. But the first 3 that came out was the Sunburst, the CFM, and the Shoreline Gold with the racing stripes. They all came with the black Incase. The Olympic Whites came out next. They also came out with the black Incase. And then I think at some point, either production ended on the Incase while the Mayer Sig production at Fender was still happening. And then Fender transitioned over to the G&G typical Fender case, which you see, which is that second one on the screen.
I've always wondered what exactly happened. Maybe just maybe there was a limited time that they could work like with the licensing, or I don't know what exactly. Incase is still around, I believe.
Yeah,
So
I mean, actually, if you look at something on the screen, the black one case was also Incase
that's
as well,
true.
right?
That's
and
true.
that was 2010. So something happened. Production stopped of them, and they switched over, and some of the Mare Sigs come with that grayish hard case.
Yeah, because mine's 2011. I bought this in fall of 2011 and had to wait for it to be built because at that time they had no Olympic whites readily in stock at the dealer I went to. Just like Long McQuaid in Canada, a massive company.
So you bought it new in 2011, and it still came with the Fender bag.
I never got the option for a hard shell case, and I remember getting it and seeing this case, being like, "What the hell? I don't want this stupid gig bag." I was very biased at the time too. I only liked hard shell cases. If I had a guitar that came with a soft shell case, I immediately went out and bought a hard shell case that fit it. And little did I know that if I would have turned this down, what I was giving up, because now I don't like any case other than this one. It's so good. But yeah, so if you see even a 2011, maybe 2012 Fender, they could have still that late in production come with one of these, because mine's 11 and that's what it came with.
Yeah, my opinion overall, I mean, I think it's a cool case. It's molded. It's definitely got it's harder than your normal gig bag, which makes it kind of thicker and
it's sturdy.
Better protected. It's really sturdy. It's a little bulky. You carry it on your back and it's a little bit much, but it's still it's a cool piece of gear too, right? Because it is kind of co-branded between three cool brands.
I can vouch for it too. Like I've been, mine's not the, the Mare branded one, but like the quality of it and like the ruggedness. I mean, I've taken this thing, on, I don't know how many tours, how many fly dates, and it's like, it's built like a tank.
Nice.
I'd like to point out lastly, sorry, Tommy, with the cases, the Visvim inspiration kind of, and like that fashion sense behind both the more limited production in cases. Like if you look at the olive one and the black one, those are very similar style to a lot of John's favorite clothing and that kind of military Japanesey style.
Yeah, so, custom ability, customization ability, Yeah,
it very much John's personality and things, designs aspects he likes went into those two rare ones for sure.
For sure, yeah. I mean, the green one is probably one of the coolest guitar cases out there. It came with the Cypress mica color, which was also another limited run, and I was able to find just the case by itself, which is hard to do. It's kind of sad to separate them from the Cypress micas, but you know what? One of the things that I also got obsessed with it too, because when John carries his black one around in the Incase bag. So you'll see, if he ever is traveling with that guitar, it'll be in that Incase bag. And then he posted.
I'm sorry, continue.
No, I was just gonna say, I think he posted on Instagram too a picture of
that he shared an Instagram story flying with the Super Eagle, and it was with that Incase.
Oh, that's right.
With that same. It's obvious that for him, that's his favorite case.
Yeah.
In the world.
To me, Justin's favorite is the black gig bag, but this case it's a bit more it's a bit flatter, less kind of bulky and rounded on the front, with the pocket design. It's super light. I wish good case manufacturers out there make something that looks like that.
And the interior, that blue, I miss mine so much. Like from when I had my Cyber, it was the most beautiful interior. Yeah, let's get the money shot.
I'd like to clarify. Sorry, Tommy. The Incase cases are my favorite, but that one's not my favorite out of the three. I take the olive one or the black one any day.
Yeah, so it's got this light blue interior, same kind of design with the.
That's classy.
Patches here.
It's interesting to see the slight kind of design difference as well, like in terms of the overall shape of the bag. You notice that like the black ones are a little more pointed, and that one has a little more of like a snub nose on the top.
There's a little little design elements that are pretty cool.
Man, one day, dude, one day I'll get my Cypress back and I'll get my case back if they haven't been separated.
That's right.
Well, there was that one all of Incase that was for sale, what, 2 days ago? Or something someone was posting.
Gearland, yeah.
Wanted like over 600 US for just the case.
I mean, there's only a limited number of them out there, and they are it's a cool piece of gear. Especially, I mean, anything that John actually uses himself repeatedly going forward and just goes up in value too.
Remember the Black One episode when you talked about getting to hold the Black One, and when John was told one of his security guards or whatever, hey, go get my guitar, and you knew right away when it pulls out in that olive case, the guy's walking in. You know the Black One's coming out. I mean,
that's why I had to have one. I just had to buy one for my black Strat after that. But that leads to the Black One, which was kind of the last color released at the same time as the Cruise signature Black Ones. But that one came with the black case you see on the right side here, which was also another really cool kind of gig bag hard shell. Or kind of hard molded case with that fashion military style for sure that Justin pointed out.
That one also had the patches you could customize and stick.
Both the olive green one and the black one both had patches that it came with actually. And
I didn't know the olive one did.
You know, when I bought it, it didn't have any patches on it, but it didn't come with the patches because I bought it secondhand. But
it has like it's one that says like straight to voicemail, always home, different references like to his lyrics.
Yeah, it came with kind of both of those ones. Kind of a cool customize yourself idea. You see the Velcro along the front pouch there where you can kind of add those. So yeah, those are the cases they came with. We've kind of touched on this a bit too, but you know, looking at the Mehr Sig timeline from kind of inception all the way through to when John ended his relationship with Fender, kind of look at and along the bottom I threw some album art up there so you could see kind of how it spanned an important part of his career while these were being developed or released and made up until the end of the relationship with Fender. But kind of the early years, 2003, 4, 5, there was a lot of, I call it R&D. We'll get into some of that cool stuff in a bit. But, you know, Mehr was concepting the Sig Strats. The public launch happened in the summer of 2005. And again, that was the Sunburst with the Tortoise Guard, the CFM, and the Shoreline Gold. The CFM was a limited 1 of 100 release. And the Shoreline Gold is a questionable one. There's a lot of questions about how limited that one is. And I think the general consensus is that it was produced for about a year.
I believe it was like a limited run. Yeah, a limited run for 2005, I believe.
For 2005, yeah.
Yeah.
And then mid-2006 is when the Olympic white version launched. So not much longer after, there was another color, followed by mid-2007, which was when the Cypress Mica launched with the Incase olive green bag, and that was a limited run of 500. But I do want to point out the Olympic white actually was an unlimited run, similar to the Sunburst. So it was not a limited guitar. We hear Justin got his in 2011. But the Cypress Mica was limited to 500, which came out in mid-2007. Then those were kind of the 5 colors for a while until the Black One project happened. You know, Mehr actually got his Black One in late 2004, his Cruise #1. But then there was the Black One series release where he wanted to do 83 of the John Cruise custom shop model, as well as an NOS version. So an interesting thing about this NOS version is it shares all of the specs to the John Mehr signature Strats that came out before it. It actually shares more specs with those guitars than it does with the Cruise replica. It really is a John Mehr Sig Strat. It has Big Dipper pickups in it, which the Cruise Strat did not. Other than the special hardware like the pearl tuners, the gold bridge, and gold hardware throughout with the screws and the input jack. You know, it was your NOS version of the beat up Black One although it was released with poly, and whoever bought one, it's never going to look like the Cruise that you see next to it, ever.
No matter
what
how hard
chisel you take to it.
that guitar.
It's a smart marketing, ploy on their part. But yeah, no, they
And we'll show. I have a few more pictures of that guitar when it was born a little bit later in the conversation. But that was kind of the last Mayor Sig released in 2010, and then 2014 is when John announced his relationship with Fender was ending. That's when the Mayor Sig Strat stopped production, and that's when they started to become more rare and pricier on the used market. There were a lot out there for a long time that you could get at retail or even below in some cases, but if it wasn't a limited one. But then the prices started to jump after that relationship ended.
Yeah, the prices now are kind of crazy, to say the least. And it's kind of weird that the Olympic white ones are considerably going for more than the Sunburst one, even though there's only, like you say, 2-year production difference.
Yeah. I think obviously the Sunburst one, which again we'll get into in a sec, is the most well-known, Mayor Sig, the first one released. We'll talk about that, but yeah, there's the most of the Sunburst and the white ones out there. Probably the most Sunbursts out there, and then the limited ones can go for, over $3,000 now, in many cases.
Not a bad profit.
So one of the other people I wanted to mention that was pivotal in development of the Mayor Sig was this gentleman right here. This is Chris Fleming, associated with the Fender Custom Shop. He was one of the master builders for a while at the Custom Shop, and actually now he is the director of the Custom Shop. He's the one that signs all the COAs. So he's no longer building guitars, but he's overseeing all of the Custom Shop production. But John obviously formed a relationship with Fleming in the early days of Mayor Sig conversations. So Fleming had a lot to do with the design of this guitar, working closely with John. And we'll talk about some of the special Fleming versions of the Mayor Sigs that John actually plays in a bit as well. But he was a pivotal person at Fender that worked with Mayor on the Sigs. Also like to point out there's a bunch of dudes who are kind of well known for playing the Mayor Sigs. If you're watching this podcast and you made it to this point in the video, I can guarantee you can probably name everyone on the screen because
a couple of those
in the club. These aren't A-list celebrities other than Shawn Mendes in the bottom right, who's now A-list, but the rest of the guys I think can be named by anyone. But we have Tom Misch was playing his Mayor Sig for a long time, and now he's actually a Fender artist and plays some other Fenders. But he still, that I think still is his number one guitar. Misch plays that Mayor Sunburst. Chris Buck also, who's has a lot of internet fame these days, YouTube and Instagram forums. Great dude. Chris Buck was one of us guys. He was just a better guitar player than all of us. He was a gear nerd in the early days, and he played a Mayor Sig for a long time. And that was his main guitar with his band Buck and Evans for a while. And then, as he kind of grew in his career as an artist, he's now expanded into, he's now a Fender artist as well, but he now has a bunch of different Strats that he plays, as well as a bunch of other guitars.
That's a Slash pose he's rocking there, if I've ever seen.
For sure. He was inspired by Slash, right, in his growing up.
Oh yeah, the Marshall stack, the long hair, the glasses, everything. Even that pose you can see just super low down. That's a Slash pose if I ever did see one.
Then Mick Taylor from That Pedal Show, also
Mick.
Internet fame. Mick's a big Mayor fan for sure. Obviously, he's a huge Strat fan, but he owns a Cypress Mica Mayor Sig, and he'll whip that out on That Pedal Show to play stuff a lot. And it's cool to see that one actually get played kind of pretty often with different pedals and amp combinations. Bottom left there, it's an older picture, but Tomo Fujita is, I think, a pretty well-known Berkeley professor of guitar. He was Mayer's teacher for a year and still teaches at Berkeley. A lot of the, guys that we follow, guys and girls on Instagram that have passed through Berkeley have worked with Tomo. And that's a picture, I think, from 2008 when Mayer did a little clinic at Berkeley. And also there's a photo in the bottom right there of John gave Tomo a Sunburst Sig and signed it on the back. It says, "To Tomo, you're the best." In 2008, he gave him a Mayer Sig, and that's what Tomo's playing in that photo there. He's obviously a YouTube celebrity and does a lot of cool videos on YouTube, and occasionally will whip out his John Mayer Sig for some of those videos. And the last one I'll mention is Shawn Mendes. Obviously Shawn's a newer pop artist that John has a relationship with. You see, actually, John's on stage with him there.
He's phenomenal.
Sitting in with Shawn Mendes, and John gifted one of his Mayer Sigs to Shawn pretty early on, as Shawn was kind of still coming up. He identified this young kid as somebody who had a lot of talent and gave him a Mayer Sig, and you see him playing it there. And I think he plays it. There's a bunch of photos of him playing it live. So I think it's one of his favorite Strats to play too. And he actually now just launched, I think, his own Fender guitar.
He did.
Kind of
the Music Master. And he's got a couple really cool master builds. I believe, I can't remember who did it. Either Dale Wilson did it or I want to say it was Dale Wilson or Paul Waller did that really rad charcoal Tele custom that he played.
Right?
Yeah, it's mean looking.
That might be his #1 guitar too. I haven't seen him, but so there's definitely a relationship there. Cool. So moving on, let's talk specs of the Mayer Sig Strat. Threw a bunch of things up here on screen. Alder body, African rosewood neck. Of varying darknesses, I will point out. I'm a sucker for really dark rosewood, and there are very light rosewood Mayer Sigs and very dark neck rosewood Mayer Sigs. There was not a lot of consistency there, but it's a African rosewood. Mayer went with the 9.5-inch radius, Fender's most popular radius, which was an interesting choice. Not interesting, but a pretty common choice for the neck radius he liked the most, even though on his SRV Sig that was actually a 12-inch radius neck. It has 6105 Dunlop frets. One of the interesting things on the neck too is its chunky C shape. I put the measurements there because I think people with ordering custom shop Strats these days kind of can get obsessed with, well, at least I can. I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but obsessed with neck shapes and sizes. I think neck shape is one of the most important things about whether you like playing a guitar or not. And you have to find the neck shape that your hands like and play well with. But John's was described as a chunky C shape. It was only in inches, kind of 82 hundredths at the first fret to 94 hundredths at the 12th, which is pretty similar to kind of the standard Fender neck that they use on most of their American guitars and some of the custom shop models. Although I think it was a little bit kind of thicker in the shoulder area of the guitar to make it feel a little chunkier in your hand. And then something we can discuss is the nut width. So the whole time I've had my Mayer Sig and been following John in this guitar, I always thought it had a 1 and 11 30 seconds nut width, which translates to about 1.685 in the width, and it's a little bit wider than the standard Fender nut width, which is 1.65 inches. And I always thought that also contributed, I think, to a lot of people what they say about the neck feeling a little bit bigger and chunkier in their hands. We all know John has big hands. I actually am going to skip forward really quick to this slide. And you can see I measured with calipers my nut width on my neck and got that 1 and 11 30 seconds. And then that photo on the right is from the PRS interview where he said, I have giant thumbs. which I think kind of contributes to the wider neck. You know, he was known, he always has been known for doing a lot of finger picking of his electric guitars, and I think a slightly wider neck allows for a little more breathing room between the strings, and also he has big hands and can easily wrap his thumb around the string. So I'm pretty sure he went with that wider nut width for those reasons. Jumping back to the rest of the specs, the raised string tree is another interesting one. You'll notice on the, if you look at Alejandra's or the one Justin has, the string tree is a little bit higher up on the headstock than a normal placement of a string tree on a Fender guitar. And it is one of the ways to instantly recognize if a guitar is a Mayer Sig or not, because it is a pretty specific design change that John wanted to go with. And I think it has to do with the feel of the strings, the slack of the strings, and also people like to say the nut bending as well, bending at the nut to just kind of play around with some sounds. Any other thoughts, guys, on why he decided to raise that string tree up there?
I always thought it was kind of an odd choice first. You know, we never really got to see him do a whole lot of like the nut bending thing. Like we see it, like, you know, I think most famously, like, you know, on Gravity, Where the Light Is, but I think he played the black one for that song, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's kind of like, well, he can do it just fine with the normal string position. I think it's also maybe just, you know, kind of an aesthetic choice. You know, on the spec sheet, you know, it says it's placed in the same spot as like a 52 Telecaster, so maybe it's just, you know, just want something a little different, you know, and it definitely does seem to affect the feel a little bit, you know.
Yeah. But you'll see that'll be an interesting piece of spec as we get into some of the early versions of the guitars and kind of recognizing Mayer Sigs. Continuing down the list, it's got a 62 style pickguard. So it's another, I say that 3-ply pickguard. You notice the screw between the neck and middle pickup is kind of placed, as Justin is showing, almost directly between the two pickups, where prior to 1960 and after 1960, starting with 63 and beyond, that screw moved back down towards the middle pickup.
Like right there.
Which you can see in that guitar Chandler has. Don't quote me exactly on those years, but it's kind of called a 62 style pickguard screws. Yeah. Again, it's another thing, if you're looking for Mayer Sigs, you can look for that screw pattern and try to identify them, which is interesting. It has the Big Dipper pickups. We'll talk about those in a second. Vintage locking tuners, a 50s spaghetti logo, has no patent numbers on it. It's just that 50s logo, which also, interestingly, is the logo on his black one and the logo on SRV's #1 Strat, because I think that had a 59 neck, right? So so he's gone with that 50s spaghetti logo, you know, for a lot of his guitar builds, at least the Fenders that he's had. And then the 5 tremolo springs that it comes with. You know, Mayer doesn't use the trem bar and the tremolo on his signature guitars or on any guitar really all that much, unless he's playing Heartbreak Warfare, and then he likes to play as Jeff Beck or some of the guitars, Chandler, you like that he plays.
Oh yeah, his Charvel, his Soloist, right? You know, a couple others, yeah.
But interestingly, I mean, there's some like maybe some added resonance to having more strings. It's also kind of you know, mounts the bridge flush with the body of the guitar, which should keep it better in tune. That was one of the design elements that Leo was often criticized, even though the tremolo system was such a new and unique invention at the time. He was always made fun of for the guitars going out of tune because of that system. But yeah, so most people have those 5 trem springs. He's also there's no screw holes for a cover on the back, which if Justin, you want to flip over your guitar, it kind of leaves it exposed, which is a pretty common thing for him to take that back plate cover off. Oh, Justin, you removed some strings, huh, bud?
Yeah, I just was remembering when you mentioned the 5. I was like, oh yeah, I've taken them out, and now it's making me wondering where they are. And
this one as well, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, I guess I'll show this one too.
Yeah, you show yours because this one only has 3 in it as well.
I do still have 5 springs here.
There you go.
I think it's a good thing for people in this major tone quest to experiment with different number of springs. To me, it really makes a huge difference the way the guitar responds while you're playing.
Yeah.
So I remember the first time I had an old Strat and added the 5th spring, the guitar came to life. It was insane. It was like a charm. So I really recommend people to experiment. Maybe you will like 4 springs better than 5, but it's really good for this kind of music that we like to play, like this kind of blues pop thing, to really mess up with the strings. There's the springs.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, one thing I've been on all my guitars these days, I'll do the noiseless springs from FU Tone, and I actually do a heavier gauge spring, so I only need 2. These are like a super heavy gauge, so I do 2, and it allows me to really kind of, if I want to bust out the tremolo bar, I can kind of get crazy with it. But also, there's no extra resonance, which some people like. So when you're recording, especially like, sometimes you'll get certain overtones when you're, in certain tunings, and it can kind of drive you batty, just like with Behind the Nut, So it's kind of nice. It gives me, a lot of flexibility. I can add more, take more away, in terms of, what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. One of the interesting notes, I think, too, that I just saw was the Silver Skies actually only have 4 springs, 1 missing in the middle. I mean, that's a tangent, but I don't understand why I would do that.
Do they include the 5th, I wonder? Or is it just, they just like, here's 4,
so.
Good luck?
Here's 4. They don't include the 5th.
No.
Huh!
And something else, too. These came with, like, the ashtrays.
Yep.
Ashtrays that nobody uses.
I literally just found mine. I don't think I've seen it since 2011 when I bought it. I found it, like, 2 weeks ago. Just cleaning out some stuff, and I was like, oh, and that's when I messaged you guys being like, did these come with an ashtray? And you guys are like, yeah. And
this one's still, it's never even been opened. It's still like sealed in its thing.
Don't cut your hand, when you're playing.
That's for baby.
Cut your hand off, kid.
Well, now you guys have me wanting to find where my other springs are.
Springs went. Another two other things I realized I did not mention. One is the ones with the racing stripes actually came with these amp knobs.
Same with the Cypress.
It's kind of a cool the Cypress too, right? Yeah, this cool kind of vintage looking amp knob. And then obviously back of the headstock is where John decided to put his signature, and kind of lives here on the back of the headstock. Unlike some of the other guitars that signature models where people put them on the front of the headstock, he decided to put it on the back. And also with the Silver Sky, his signature is here on the bolt-on plate, the neck plate. Yep, there's SRVs on the
SRV
on the front. So it's again a thing where he likes to make sure it's his name is on it, but it's not front and center. It seems like a pretty common design choice that he makes.
What did John say in one of the promotional pieces? He said something like, my name's on the back of it, so you can put your name on the front, like all over the front of it, or everywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's cool thinking that he was saying that back in 2005, and
check it out.
He wants to retain that mindset with the Silver Sky. He wants a guitar that everyone can relate to and not have this huge John Mayer stamp all over it.
Yeah.
Good memory,
that's
Justin.
Really cool.
This is the launch ad, if I could show it without it reflecting, but it said it's got my name on the back of the headstock, but the rest of the guitar is for putting someone else's name all over it.
Boom.
Yeah, I'll put a big high-quality image of that up on the
sweet.
screen right now for everyone to see.
Cool. So another interesting thing, we'll talk about the Big Dipper pickups. but let's actually jump to that slide real quick. So this is what the underside of the pickguard looks like. One example. The Big Dipper pickups were kind of written on with JM and then NK, MD, and BR for bridge. They were written in different colors and Sharpies. This actually isn't mine. This is a picture I found on the internet. It's an example of how they look on the underside. I put my measurements just because I'm obsessed with pickups and like to know different pickup specs. But you see the measurements of the kind of underwound 5.6K neck, 5.9K middle, and 6.6 bridge where it gets higher on the bridge, which is pretty common. Again, these are measurements that I did a long time ago. I'm sure there's variances in measurements on the pickups, but it's interesting to see kind of that underwound neck. And then they're obviously described as scooped, so higher sound in the treble and bass and less mids. And then there's obviously the big debate on what the inspiration for them was, right? And a lot of we know that the Mayor Sig was inspired by John's SRV, which I'll actually show very soon. But the rumor out there is that the pickups were messed up in Mayer's SRV Strat, which gave him that scooped mid sound, the Texas specials in his SRV Strat, and that led to kind of some of the design and tone of the Big Dipper pickups. It's always been one that's debated, although Chandler kind of just helped us out today with this one by finding an original kind of spec sheet that came with the guitar. And I'm going to jump back one slide to this screenshot of that spec sheet. I did want to point out that the vintage string tree is placed near the same position as the 52 Telly, which Chandler pointed out. But let's look at this bullet that says the pickups are variations on Fender's highly acclaimed Texas special pickups, custom wound to meet John's sonic requirements. So in writing, Fender is claiming that the pickups were inspired by the Texas specials. So I kind of equate the sound of John's SRV and his Mayor Sig to a lot of the early scooped chimey Strat playing that he did in the early years of his career, kind of before he got the black one and his 64 Strat. Big Dippers. They're an interesting thing. Thing.
Yeah. I want to point out too on that, since we're on this slide, something that I thought was interesting too in the wording in this. If you look at the top bullet, the dimensions, shape, and finish of Fender's American Deluxe series guitars as well, which is referencing the actual shape and overall spec of the neck, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like I wouldn't think of an American Deluxe when I pick up this guitar, There's a lot of this whole spec sheet. I kind of laugh, and there's on the flip side too. With the pickup selections, it mentions something we may or may not mention here with the Big Dippers about hum canceling. But
I think the Big Dippers, they have a hype that isn't quite justified, because like Tommy mentioned, they have a place in Mayor tone. But it's really early on. We're talking about the Any Given Thursday kind of chimey sounds when he used his SRV Sig, kind of leading into heavier things. John currently now, and for a very long time, has not played a guitar with Big Dipper pickups or pickups that remotely sound. And we might be splitting hairs a little bit here. We're being a bit pedantic over how these different pickups sound, but to a trained ear, any of the pickups he uses now don't sound like the Big Dipper pickups. I've owned a Silver Sky as well as the Mayor Sig, and I A-beat them. The pickups sound nothing alike. So I think people need to understand that if you're looking for modern, early before Continuum trio days up until present day, the Big Dippers aren't actually what you were looking for.
Yeah, it's definitely like that Lenny, like Man on the Side, like that. I'm really sloppy today.
Oh yeah, okay, Chandler. Sure, that was sloppy. But I'm not saying that they're bad sounding pickups. I mean, I love what's in mine. I love the tones I get out of this guitar, but I just don't quite think the Big Dippers deserve the hype that a lot of people give them. And you see companies now like making their own versions of Big Dipper pickups and stuff like that.
And
exactly, and I get it as a thing of especially for people who don't have a Mer Sig to kind of have something similar to those pickups to try out. But definitely, I don't quite understand the craziness that's going on. I think the value of the Big Dippers has to do with when you have the complete guitar.
Yeah, I think the hype around the Big Dippers, and I can refer to it as thinking back in the day when I was first learning about John's gear. Okay, what's he using? And I went in Google, and it was easy to find. He uses Big Dipper pickups. It was like a quick Google search away for learning that he had signature, or at least, yes, that's signature pickups for him.
Yeah.
So and again, we've said that they're not in the black one.
Really find for people that are really only everyone gets to know. Oh, he uses Big Dippers. He uses Big Dippers. But when we're talking in this level of detail as we do, we know that it depends exactly on which tones are you going for.
I wanted to touch on quickly before I'm not sure how much more of the specs we're going for, but can we just take a minute to appreciate the neck of this guitar and how great it is? Even though they say it's kind of just based on the Deluxe series and everything like that, this neck is still, out of any Strat I've played, it's one of my favorite. Like the satin finish in the back is super nice. Just, it's incredible.
It's absolutely a unique Fender neck. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of necks out there that are very similar, but this is a unique one that you can feel it right when you start playing it, that it's that kind of neck.
It's like
sorry,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, man.
I know it's like I haven't owned a Mer Sig since the Cypress. That was what, like, I sold it in 2013, 2014, something like that. And I picked this guitar up yesterday from its owner, and I as soon as I opened it up, I put my hands on that. I'm like, oh, hello, old friend. Like it's just like an instantly recognizable compared to like Old Blue or some of my other guitars that have more of like the smaller 65C. Where I put my hand on this, it's like, oh yeah, that takes it was like a flashback. It takes me back to like my early days, like playing one of these, like and figuring it all out.
I was just gonna say that we know from My Stupid Mouth forum, T9. He has a few other numbers in his name, but we all know who I'm talking about. He's hoarded a bunch of Mer Sig necks, and it's kind of crazy to think that people have actually parted these guitars out. And something I've always wanted to track down is a spare JM Sig neck, just in case I ever got like a replica black one or 64 made. I'd just be happy to slap on a JM Sig neck.
I actually, Justin, have owned a few of them and have done different builds when I was kind of getting into different like building things, learning how to build a Strat, relic a Strat bit, solder some pickups. I think I remember one of the first ones I bought, this was a while ago, it was about $400. And I couldn't imagine getting a Mer Sig neck now for $400.
You can't get it for under like $900.
Yeah, they're costly now for sure.
Yeah, those are the specs of the guitar, and now we can dive in a little bit to some of the conception of the guitar, the beginnings, the R&D, some of the guitars that Mer has played, because I think one of the interesting things is